What's going on, everybody? If you are listening to this right now, I believe I'm in Nassau. I don't know, whatever the heck it is. I'm in the Bahamas right now, and I am loving life as usual. I'm a warm weather guy, aspiring Florida man, as I often say. But I will be re-airing a show in the coming moments from an interview I did with my buddy Jacob Johnson from the Rise of the Liberty podcast. It was the second time I did his podcast, but he dived down on some of the Utah stuff, some of the Utah conspiracies that he's very, very well read on. So I figured I'd reshare that conversation because him and I had a pretty good back and forth, and he shared a lot of information that I thought was really, really interesting. So to give you guys all a little bit more content for the week, and to share his message, here's my conversation with my dear friend Jacob Johnson from the Rise to Liberty podcast.
Welcome back to Rise to Liberty podcast. This is the Sunday stream, which Kyle normally does over on his channel, but today I'm doing it on mine. So today's guest is Kyle Matovic, second appearance on Rise to Liberty. It's been a minute. How you doing, Kyle?
Excellent, man. I was just looking before the show, and my wife and I made breakfast and everything, and I was like, when was the last, when was I first on his show? And it was December of 2022. So almost 2 years ago, man. That it doesn't
Yeah,
feel like it.
no,
Yeah.
feels like 5 years.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So she asked me right after. She's like, "Well, how long you been doing this?" I'm like, "Yeah, about 3 years." And
Nope.
those 3 years have been action packed, and I've learned so much, changed my worldview, and yeah, it's been crazy, man. The last 3 years have been something else. I'm sure people say that all the time, but I don't know. Maybe it is my bias, but I feel like the last 3 years have been definitely something to revel at. It's been crazy to say the least.
Yeah, so I just passed my uh, third year in July, and it definitely doesn't seem like 3 years, that's for sure. Um, but I swear, just like spending time on Twitter ages you, or X, whatever.
Yeah.
It just ages you like 3 times faster than most people.
Yeah, you
And
gotta have a temperament, and you have to know when to just lay off. So I kinda like almost go in phases. Most of the time, it's like straight to the jugular, no bullshit. If I see somebody fucking around, I call them out instantly or just, fire off a thought. But, like, the last week, I'm kinda in, like, the down cycle where, like, there were so many arguments that I wanted to get into, and I'm like, "Nah,
nah.
I'm good. I'll pass on that. You know what? You have a good day, man. I'll be here. I'll drink my coffee. I'll drink my Pepsi. I'll lift my weights, play music, whatever I'm gonna do. But I'm just not feeling like slapping around with idiots today on Twitter, which is pretty rare, but sometimes it's warranted.
Sometimes I take it personal, and I
Mm.
I get stuck in that cycle of going. It's usually when I comment on like a local news thing, and all of a sudden I get dog piled on because I have a whole bunch of liberals coming from Salt Lake City
Yeah.
dog piling on top of me because I said one wrong thing that they didn't like.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
God forbid I say that terrible people can have terrible opinions.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah, for real. My buddy Rob, who I just had on my show a week or two ago, lives out in Utah, and I was telling my wife, I'm like, yeah,
Really?
well, Jacob lives in Utah, and then I just kind of put it together. Rob does his Salt Lake City sit down or whatever, and he's one of the guys from like the Manosphere space, and me and him become super tight.
Word.
It was kind of funny because he blocked me forever ago, and I didn't know why. And I reached out to one of our mutual friends. I'm like, oh man, well that's kind of a bummer because like I thought he was a good dude, but it was probably my fault, and it was my fault. But then he unblocked me. I'm like, he never unblocks people. So like right after that, he's like, you're all right. And he's like, I'm glad that we kind of smooth things out. So some of those guys are like, man, do you have like a private spurg out like that we just don't see? I'm like, nah, man, I've spent a ton of times with you guys online. Normally right now, my wife works every other Sunday, so I kind of coordinate, not necessarily just around her schedule, but like we don't get to spend a lot of time together throughout the week. So like the Sundays she works, I'm like glued to the screen the entire day, and I'm
Yeah.
not complaining about it. I absolutely love interacting with all these people. I do my Sunday coffee stream and then, Post Zero as well, and, yeah, the Sundays are typically, like, my days to kinda get stuff done if she's not at home, but then, if she's home, then it's like, "Alright, well, we're gonna spend some time together and go run around and be retards out in the real world."
Hell yeah. That makes it all worthwhile though.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I love stepping away out of just
Mhm.
the digital hellhole because
Yeah.
it's not just X or Twitter, whatever. It's all of it, you know?
Mhm.
It, and I've been battling with Instagram for a while. So I only have a couple of platforms that like actually took off, and Instagram was one of them.
Mhm.
Um, but I can't get recommended to anyone. Nobody can search me, nothing.
Shadow
And
banned, yeah.
it's because I keep saying things they don't like.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where I'm at on Twitter right now. It
No.
is kind of frustrating. One thing that I've tried to like pound into people's heads is that like if you are thinking about going to a concert, just go.
Yeah.
I know it may not be the most financially smart thing to do, but I cannot tell you how many concerts I've missed over the last couple of years. And every single time I go to one, I'm like, oh, fucking love this, and I love playing out too. And this kind of ties into what you said, where it's kind of nice to like step away. I notice life, like I'm not in a bad mood at all, and typically I'm like a pretty, happy person generally.
Yeah.
Not much of like a black pill kind of guy, but like, um, I want to say it was early July that a Common Crown we played. No, no, it might have been late July then. Um, we played our charity show, Rock for Life.
Yeah.
We headlined. No, no, no. We were the second to last band Friday night, so we had the most people for us, which was awesome. And then that Sunday night, we opened for Hinder, which was like did the
Yeah.
probably one of the coolest. So it was at this venue called the Raindrop Inn, and another cool thing was we were the first band to ever play that outdoor stage because they just finished
Wow.
building it. So,
Hell yeah.
yeah, super, super cool moment, and, so we opened for Hinder, and there was probably close to 1,000 people there, and I called it, like, the pig pen 'cause, it's, like, in a giant fence, there's, like, hay and shit on the ground, like, "Yeah, this literally looks like a pig pen." So, we played that and just the response was overwhelmingly awesome. I mean, people came up to us. We were standing there signing CDs, taking pictures with people for like an hour after our set, like to the point that like Hinder was going up and people were still coming up to us and talking to us. So
What a
it was
cool
just absolutely
experience.
incredible. Yeah, but though to your point, that entire weekend, I hardly talk shit on Twitter. I just kinda, like, threw up some pictures of the weekend. I'm like, "Hey, man, this is fucking awesome. We had a good time. Go check out a Common Crown, and, next year, we're gonna be crushing it even more than we are this year." But, just, like, when I'm doing stuff like that, you just don't think about politics, and you're like, "Yeah, you know what? I really don't give a shit about that stuff all that much."
Yeah.
Like, I still love talking about it, although, like, this year seems to be a little bit more monotonous, and I feel like we're just, like, stuck in, like, this time loop where I feel like we're back in 2016 and people are repeating the same thing over and over again. You know what people are gonna
Same.
say. Um, and, like, the one thing that comes to mind was, when Mark Zuckerberg admitted that he censored a story on Facebook. Like, he literally admitted this in, like, 2021, 2022, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, look, he admitted it." I'm like, am I the only one that remembers him literally saying that he did this, like,
Yeah.
2, 3 years ago? Everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's such a big deal." It's a big deal then too, but, like, why are we rehashing this over and over and over again? And it's like this 24/7 news cycle that people just
Yep.
can't break out of. So, I know I rambled a lot there, but yeah, it's basically just like everybody feels the need to have an opinion 24/7. There's some shit I look at and I'm like, just don't care. I don't have a comment. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I don't know. So here's the thing, like politics, it's pointless, right?
Yeah.
Because it really is like feeding the beast by playing into it in the first place.
Yeah.
None of it really matters.
Mhm.
But on the opposite side of that is even if you don't care about politics, politics cares about you.
Mhm.
And so I'm one of those people, I can't be told what to do. That's why I didn't do well in school.
Yeah.
It's like, so I don't know. I'm torn. It's like I'm still involved with my like state LP because I absolutely love those guys and gals. Um, and I'll do stuff like for our gubernatorial candidate,
Mhm.
but like I'm not going out to go knock doors, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was or am, I guess, technically still chairing my county affiliate, but we're not doing anything. I mean, Chase really sucked whatever life was left in the room out. And that was, well, it is what it is. But it's just interesting because everyone is so uptight about it.
Mhm.
But literally, like you could just go with your family, go have a good day, and then realize that maybe some things are screwed up around the house. So maybe you start buying some all natural cleaning supplies or
Mhm.
like there's things you could do in your home and you don't have to talk about it online, you know?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, you don't need to have an opinion about anything
Nope.
24/7. You don't always have to post up what you're doing all the time.
Yeah.
And heaven forbid, I don't know why, but I reactivated Snapchat after not having it for years and
Oh,
years. And like it's a nice way to kind of keep in touch with some people. And there's people that I haven't talked to in years that like reach out to me like, hey man, hope you're well. And that was kind of cool. But um, something like that is a great way, and not like great in like a good way, but it's a great way to just kind of like constantly update stuff. So like when I'm at a restaurant or something like that, because I'm like a fat kid at heart. So my wife and I love to go to all these different places to eat.
hell yeah.
Um, I usually have to make a conscious effort to be like, okay, leave that down. You don't need a picture of this. You don't need a picture of that. There's somebody right in front of you. Life is happening in front of you. And it reminded me of a moment where I used to play in a band called Wretched Hive, and my buddy Greg invited me to his birthday party, which is at this bar called Sing Sing, where they have like people go up with a piano and they start playing songs and sing, and everybody
Hell
sings
yeah.
along, and it's really cool. And the guy playing piano told me, "Put down your phone. Life's happening in front of you." And he was pretty shitty about it, but he was 100% right. I was in the wrong there, and
Yeah.
I think about that. I'm like, man, like all the time, and everybody's guilty of it. Myself, everyone, of just walking around and doing this all the time. I get it because you constantly want to see what's going on. You want to be more informed. You just want something kind of churning the wheels in your mind. But sometimes, probably more than we do, it's necessary, like we were saying earlier, unplug and enjoy what's right in front of you, whether that be required of you or not. And like in my job and my field and what I like to do, um, you kind of want to be so busy that you're not constantly doing something like that. And like I said, I'm definitely guilty of not kind of setting correct boundaries with technology sometimes.
Yeah.
But as I was saying earlier, when life is going really well, when let's say we all go out on my bass player and singer's boat, or we're playing an awesome show, I don't even think about Twitter. I don't think about anything like that. I'm like, man, just like doing this right now in the moment is so
Yeah.
fucking cool that I'm not worried about anything else. And I find those
My
moments to be the most.
dopamine is flowing. I don't need nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah, pour me
Yeah,
another
dude.
shot of Crown, brother.
See, like I'm totally on that wavelength because it's
Yeah,
like, first of all, I never wanted to be involved in politics
right.
ever. Like for the longest time, I loved libertarian literature.
Yeah.
Any chance I got to talk to somebody about it, I would just go off like a madman,
Mhm,
like a autistic spaz. But it got to a point where I was like, well, I've got to put my money where my mouth is.
mhm.
And then you get into it, run a few elections, because right now I'm currently a candidate. I'm not doing anything with it.
Mhm.
It's pointless. I'm not going to raise money, and so I would rather raise money for like building a farm,
Yeah,
getting my family out of the city, different things like that. Like there's
yeah.
just so much time that I could just spend not doing politics.
Mhm,
And by not doing them, that's exactly what they don't want. So therefore it subverts it. And so it's kind of interesting that way. I do want to stay informed enough because I have a major internal struggle, and it usually comes out of my mouth when somebody will give me an opinion about whatever world issue, Israel, for example,
mhm.
but yet they don't know who their city councilmen are
Right.
or their county commissioners. Like they've never been to a meeting. It's like, go fuck yourself. You shouldn't have an opinion. Like
Mhm,
you are a child in the adults room. Go sit down. Like it's just ridiculous. It's like so you can stay informed about somewhere halfway around the world that you'll probably never go. And even if you did, you would probably have a shit time because you're a shit person. But you're going to tell me what they should do because you've
Mhm.
never been over there, but yet you can't tell me who you should have voted for, who you should be talking to on a regular basis because they're the ones that increase your taxes directly. They're the ones that affect your roads, your utility services, all of these things, and you don't even know who they are. And guess what? That's where all the corruption happens because I actually pay attention to mine, so I see it.
Yeah, I remember my bass player telling me about, he recently just left his, it was a part-time thing for him, but he was county commissioner of, Armstrong County, which is one county over from me, and I remember
Word.
him telling me there were people who were making 60 grand a year, and this was probably 5 or 6 years ago, before
Damn.
2020, so, I mean, this is decent, pretty damn good living to work part-time at the county. I'm like, "Holy hell, these guys are making a damn good living
Mhm.
working part-time in their local offices." Like, people have no idea how deep this shit runs, and,
Oh, yeah. And
it's
it's a club.
yeah, right, yeah,
Like, you
one
gotta
that
play ball.
generally yeah, and, I remember him telling me about, like, some of the meetings, and just, like, ancillary, just irrelevant bullshit that people come and complain about,
Dude,
and,
it's Twitter in real life.
yeah, pretty much. This person did this zoning, this or
They said
that.
this.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, I couldn't fucking imagine. I mean, I kinda stepped away from Libertarian Party stuff because I felt like my life was just getting so busy to the point where I'm like, Something's gotta go," and
Yeah.
that was it back probably late 2021. I still support people, and I still, host candidates on the show and talk to people, and, obviously, if there's
Yeah.
good people, I support them regardless of party, but, I kinda wanted to talk to you a little bit about this as well when it comes, to like, the Mises Caucus stuff. Um, I kinda removed myself from it entirely. I still have,
Face.
a lot of respect yeah, a lot of, respect and love for Angela herself.
Yeah.
Um, but to me, it kinda looks like right now what she's doing is making the best of a bad situation, because if we're being honest, the Mises Caucus was a failure. And part of
In
this
the
isn't
end, yes.
yes. Or at least in its current state. Not saying that things can't be improved, but, like, when you look at it objectively from what they stated to where we are now, they failed completely at their mission.
Oh, it
And
died the second Dave dropped out. As soon as
I think it
it
died.
was confirmed. Like, I mean, it
Yeah,
was on that path, but there was
yeah,
still energy, you know? And that's
yeah,
what we needed. But as soon as
right.
it was like 100%, he's not. I mean, there were rumors going around. Like, I
Mhm.
already assumed he wasn't going to because he hadn't said anything.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't blame him at all, even
No,
though I
neither do I.
still think it's shitty because it's like, well, the only reason I got involved and paid all this money and like did all
Mm,
this stuff and like sleepless nights, phone calls, emails, just like started up a county party in my area, like
yeah.
went out of my way was because he was going to run. So I felt a little betrayed, but I looked at the state of the party and I said, I wouldn't want to represent that. Like, I I don't like telling people, "Oh, yeah, I'm part of the Libertarian Party." Well, especially at this point, that's why I've just kinda checked out because I can't sell the party with Chase leading it,
Yeah,
and he's not leading it, but he's the face. So it's like,
exactly. Yeah, and this kinda goes to, like, when I tell people about the whole red pill space, which, um, when I say that, people are like, "Oh, Myron Gaines, Fresh and Fit, and Pearl." I'm like, There's, like, a whole world beyond those 3 retards that nobody knows, that's, like, information that a
yeah,
lot of guys could really, really use that may or may not make or break their entire life. And once again, I'm
yeah,
not telling people you even should go check that out. Like, if that's something that interests you, you want to listen, hey, here are some of the people that I hang out with and talk to that I'm very good friends with that you can go check out. But, like, when you have retards that represent the group, the problem is now that entire message is tainted. So this is kind of
yep,
like the problem with the Libertarian Party right now is
yep,
that Chase Oliver is the representation. And there were some, shitty backroom deals, but, like, as far as I'm
mhm.
concerned, it was like, okay, well, the takeover happened. That was May of 2022, right? And right there, it kind of seemed like all the oxygen had left the room at that point.
Yeah,
Excuse
because
me.
we talked about because I was heavily involved, at least in my state,
Yeah.
and in the national, um, representing the state of Utah, but it was really interesting because before Reno, that's all we talked about.
Hmm.
And then nobody once asked the question, well, what after, because it's
Right.
clear we're taking it,
Right.
so but that's not even the goal. Like
Mhm.
it's just, oh my God, having a libertarian party actually be libertarian, like
Right.
what a crazy idea. And so it was successful because the one thing that you need to start a movement in anything is excitement.
Hmm.
Because the hardest thing is to get people to come out of their houses because
Right.
you've got to give them a reason to come out of their house. You've got to uh, make them feel wanted, but not too wanted because they don't want to be roped into something that they don't approve of or that they don't sign up for willingly. And if you don't already have something going on, then they're not going to come out to start something.
Hmm.
And but you've got to have those people coming out to do anything.
Right.
And it's like you can like do all these things. This is what I ran into because I was basically a one man county party. Um, that's not entirely fair. My executive committee did help a lot, and other people in the party, but there were people that were involved, people that said that they wanted to be involved and never were, and then people that would hang up on you even though you're a libertarian.
Hmm.
So that's exactly it what happened with the Mises Caucus, though, because there was so much buildup and anticipation for Reno, and it was a good like release of all the tension,
Yeah.
especially because like Sarwark acted like such a dickhead, and just like it was just so transparent,
It's
just
kind of owning the
everybody.
libs.
Yes, exactly.
Ah,
And everyone, really should have breathed a breath of or a sigh
relief.
of relief.
Yeah.
Um, that fucking not coming to my mind, but
Mm.
we needed to get immediately back to work.
Yeah.
And that did happen. So I'm not exactly quite sure where it went off the rails,
Mm.
but we were on a very strict schedule of like, we're having, you should be having these meetings in your state. And then if the state's big enough, county meetings, blah, blah, blah. But you should be out there getting people, getting them signed up, running them through the system, all of this stuff. Make sure they can get to national. Like we were on a regimen without even knowing it.
Mm.
and and then there was just like, well, what now? And then the first thing I heard was, all right, let's go take over the state of Texas because
Mm.
Texas is like a
Super
liberal.
woke. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I sat and I was like, I don't live in Texas. I like Texas. I like things that come out of Texas. I like things that stay in Texas, but I'm not in Texas.
Right.
So I'm not going to work for Texas. So, I mean, if they really needed my help, I would, but I'm going to work
Yeah.
for Utah, you know?
Right. Exactly. I mean, well, that's what's closest to you as well. So, like,
No.
and the whole idea behind the Mises Caucus was the decentralized revolution, right?
Yep.
And it seemed like more there was a cult of personality behind Dave Smith and maybe lesser so Michael Heiss, rather than like, hey, we're going to build the Libertarian Party into something that's serious and formidable third party.
Yeah.
It really seemed like a lot of the people who were able to put their nose to the grindstone and work weren't there. Like, and this is something that it took me a while to realize, but I realized it after the 2022 midterms, I want to say. And it's that just because you have a bomb ass social media presence and you're ratioing people and your Twitter presence
Mhm.
is good, that does not mean diddly fuck in the grand scheme of things and electoral outcomes. Like the
Mhm.
perfect example, the person who epitomizes this to a T is that Valentina Gomez, I think she was. I don't even remember what fucking state she was in. She got like 6% of her vote in her Republican primary. But if you looked on Twitter, her shorts, TikToks had millions and millions and millions of views. You couldn't get but fucking 6% of the fucking electorate to get her elected.
Hell, I
So,
even got 12 the first time I ran.
yeah, but that's what I mean is that
Yeah,
like
yeah,
nobody cares about online stuff despite what we
yeah.
think. And like just because you go on Joe Rogan, just because you went on Tim Pool, I hate to say it, it really hardly moves the needle. I made a joke in private in one of my group chats with some of the anti-war guys that I'm like, if you went on Timcast, chances are you're gonna lose. Like just because you're running a campaign and you go on a big
Yep.
platform, that kind of makes me think, oh yeah, you're probably gonna lose because
Yeah.
as much people hate to admit it, the loser brigade, if you will, of the Libertarian Party, they were willing to do the work. I'm not saying that ever
Out of
transferred over to
spite.
electoral outcomes, but like they kind of know how to keep the party running. And it seems like right now we're kind of floundering. And all credit and respect to Angela. What she did this year with the National Party was, awesome, incredible. Never seen anything like it. Um, I feel like the softly endorsing Trump, which is what she's done, and it's undeniable. I feel like that's just making the best of a bad situation because there's no good way to spin Chase Oliver other than just a complete and
The
total
way
failure of
he
the
did
Mises
though.
Caucus. All right, guys, we are going to take a quick break from the show to tell you about the show's sponsor. We are now brought to you by Fox and Sons coffees. You can see right here, I got the Den Blend Dark. Really enjoy that. I've been drinking a lot of their Brazil honey prep right here. As you can hear, there's not a lot of beans left in it because I've been drinking it quite a bit. Just to tell you a little bit about Fox and Sons, why I support them and why you should too, is that Stephen had started the company up in Michigan to help teach his son about entrepreneurship. I'm all about that, and I do firmly believe that in order to spread liberty in our lifetimes, we have to support those who support similar values as us. And Stephen does support all the same libertarian values that I bring and talk about on the show a lot. So go to foxandsons.com, use code Kyle at checkout to get 15% off of orders $25 or more, and there's always free shipping whenever you place an order that is more than $37.99. Find their coffee absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure you will too. So one more time, go to foxandsons.com, use code Kyle at checkout to get yourself a little discount. Let them know I sent you, and support the coffee that supports you. All right, guys, thanks. Back to the show.
The way that she did
Mhm.
spin it, it's like, let's support him in swing states. I was like, oh my God, that's genius. Like
Well, yeah,
from
yeah, that's what I
from
mean.
that standpoint, dude,
Yeah.
I was lost after
Mhm.
watching the convention that whole weekend.
Right.
I was like blown away. I kept saying, repeating it. How is she going to do this? Like, how is she going to do this? Because she can't come out and be like, well, I don't support him either.
Mhm.
You know, that's like
Yeah.
career suicide. So the way that she did that, I was like, man, that's great. You belong
Well,
in politics.
there was really no other way to do it.
Yeah.
I just
And
get
she still helped him.
yeah.
Like the thing is like a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a lot of things that happen on behind the scenes because
Mhm.
you're 100% right.
Mhm.
Online is like, well, it's just like going to like a gala or like a black tie event, you know,
Mhm.
you're pissing into the wind. Like
Yeah.
it's fun. I like getting dressed up too. But I will tell you, when I knocked doors, when I called people, when I, went to the county fair, state fair, all of these things, I didn't bring up social media once.
Mhm.
That was never, ever the thing. Unless right at the end, this is how you can contact us. This is where we are.
Right.
Other than that, that was it. Um, but here's the thing is that there's so much that doesn't get talked about,
Mhm.
which is probably for the best. But at the same time, you have people screeching because you don't see some empty platitude. And that's what the loser brigade cares about.
Mhm.
It's, the marches, the carrying the pride flag, like all of these different things that also don't move the fucking needle. And also just makes you look like a jackass too, because
Mhm.
read the room, dude. Like, even if you are gay, like, so what? But you shouldn't run on it because
Right.
it's the most unpopular thing right now. I mean, they
Mhm.
they had a good run of, 40 years, 30 years, whatever, of being top dog in society. So, they're losing their spotlight. But the thing is that there's a lot of little yappy dogs that somehow get propped up.
Mhm.
And the people who actually do the work, pay the money, they honestly don't even ever show up. Most of them don't have Twitter, Facebook, nothing.
Mhm.
And that's what it is. Angela went on to a show right before she did my show recently, and oh, it's Liberty Dad, I think.
Oh yeah, DL Cummings.
Yes,
Mhm.
that was a wonderful show, absolutely wonderful. And the reason why is because he was asking some tough questions if you were paying attention to this stuff online. She answered honestly. And not only does it make sense, it completely changes exactly what's happening here.
Mhm.
So, because here's another thing, there's always two sides, right? So that's why a leadership position in any politics, you just stay quiet. But yeah, there is bolstering, I guess. It's like, ooh, look at me peacocking.
Mhm.
That's what it is.
Yeah. It's been interesting to watch it unfold. I've kind of stopped making predictions about political stuff because the ones I made early on in my podcast, I was completely fucking wrong, and I'll be the first one to admit that I've been wrong about so much. But I think everybody's overestimating their hand right now, and this kind of goes back to the point I was making earlier about how everybody's kind of the online presence stuff, and people are kind of tied up in this 24/7, news cycle where like, okay,
Yep.
well, let's talk about the PayPal mafia stuff. I think people are overestimating how much influence they have here, and maybe
Yeah.
even to the same degree with Angela and the Trump stuff. And I hope that all these people are right, right? I want them to be right. I want this almost utopian vision that they're putting forward. I don't think it's going to happen. I
Not
think
inside the system.
Right, right. Well, I think when people bring up like the PayPal mafia, so all the Mark Andreessen, David Sachs, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, um, there's some other names that just ain't
Yeah.
coming to me right now, are all backing Trump. I think that people have this impression that just because they are there, that means like everything's going to go in their direction. I'm like, I don't know. So, my
No.
problem is that like it seems like everybody's analysis of politics right now is like a presidential election cycle or maybe even 2 presidential election cycles behind, because
Yeah.
people are saying, "Oh, Trump's this non-establishment outsider. There's he all the neocons are lined up against him. All these people
Bullshit.
hate him." And I'm
He
like, "Oh,
grew up organized crime.
well, it's not just that, but, like,
Like,
he's a known factor now in politics, and people
mhm.
oftentimes forget that, like, there is a huge an enormous wing of anti-China,
Yep.
anti-Iran, anti-South America think tanks that are backing Trump as well. Frank Gaffney, Michael Ledeen,
Yep.
Scooter Libby, who was pardoned by Trump, a lot of George Bush era neocons that never get
Mhm.
talked about. When people talk about neocons now, generally they're like, "Oh, yeah, Bill Kristol," and that's like it. "Oh, yeah, Bill Kristol doesn't like Trump, so therefore all the neocons are against Trump." Let's pump the brakes here. Let's be real about our analysis here,
They
unless
haven't
we not
gotten that far, and stayed where they are because they stay where they are
exactly.
with
People
being an idiot.
misunderstand people misunderstand how subversive some of like the worst actors are, and
Yeah.
this kind of discredits their own case.
Mhm.
And the problem is if you're not going to be objective about where Trump is, then you're going to be wrong about things going forward. And part of the reason why I like to talk about like the PayPal mafia stuff is because like let's not forget a lot of these guys were like big backed by Peter Thiel. So like
Yeah.
JD Vance is an example of one of the Peter Thiel proteges. And the reason why I'm so skeptical of going whole hog on Trump, as a lot of people have, for not entirely bad reasons, because like the people that we're up against are so bad. Like I threw out the tweet that like the Democrats are so bad that they deserve to lose, but that doesn't mean that Trump deserves to win, right?
Yeah.
And like people won't understand the point I'm making there. But like,
Trump isn't good. He's just an average guy,
right,
but the Democrats are so bad, it makes him look that good. That's the
exactly.
thing. The bar is set so low. It's like, I mean, Reagan was like revered as one of like the conservative presidents, like the
Right.
guy, America. He introduced like no fault divorce and like he banned machine guns, like all of
Mhm.
these terrible
Price
liberal.
controls.
Yeah, exactly. And then him, I think or his campaign paid $10 million to keep the Iranian hostages his
Mhm.
first election cycle. So Iran was going to release the hostages, send them home, and Reagan's campaign said, "No, no, 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 no. We'll pay you $10 million to keep them
We gotta
for
run
another
on
2
this.
months."
Yeah.
Yes. Like, and this is like the conservative. Go
Mhm.
fuck yourselves. You guys are a joke. Like,
Yeah. And I think that's kinda where
it's
we're
a
at with Trump.
tetherball. you know?
Yeah, it's so funny because I keep saying it and people don't wanna acknowledge it, but Trump's running like a low energy DEI campaign where every single thing is
Mhm.
Michael Tracy. If you wanna follow somebody who has like a good understanding of politics right now, an objective analysis of both sides, Michael Tracy is the guy for that, and he's been one of my favorite people to follow
Yeah.
just because he nails it every single time. Where pretty much Trump's campaign now is if you don't vote for me, then you ain't Jewish. But oh yeah, I love that line.
Well,
Um,
I'm not Jewish, so
yeah, well, exactly. Um, I think the thing that people are discounting is that because JD Vance is a Peter Thiel protege who pretty much put up Palantir, which is like this global spying system that works
Yep.
directly with the CIA. Um, the Republicans are big supporters of anti-BDS laws and like supporting Israel to a T.
Yep.
And people are like, oh, Trump's like the anti-establishment, anti-CIA candidate. No, pretty much the entire
No.
Republican Party right now, and the entire right half of like America, right, I don't want to say right half, but like right part of America is like all CIA spooks. I mean, Joe Kent, a lot of their talking points are laundered through the CIA, through the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, when they talk about China or even Iran or South America.
Yep.
Um, and what I kind of see potentially coming down the pipeline, and I'll admit I'm wrong if this turns out to not be the case, is this global spying apparatus that tracks you down, and if you criticize Israel, then you go to jail, you get fined, something happens to you because you're going against the grain. Because all
Mhm.
these people are fervent Zionists, and people could sit there and say Trump's a free speech warrior, but he was the one who signed anti-BDS laws in
Mhm.
2019, and people never talk about this. And I'm not saying there's some kind of like giant JQ conspiracy that controls the world, but
Yeah,
we
it's
can't
not, but it kinda is.
right, but you can't ignore
Yeah.
that influence. And I've also posited this a lot too, that pretty much anything that the US or the Israeli government accuses China of, the US
Mhm.
and Israel are actually guilty of. So like, genocide, they
Yep.
accuse China of it. Okay, well, what's going on in Palestine right now?
Organ
Uh,
harvesting, child
yeah,
trafficking,
all that stuff. Yeah, labor camps. Um,
and that's not to
in
say that they don't do it either, but
mm,
it's like
you can
that's one of
definably, yeah, you could prove this stuff with the Israeli
yes.
government or like spying on Americans. Like you realize like Israel had actually wiretapped phone calls between Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. Like this is documented and proven.
So,
And
there's a theory, sorry to interrupt real quick.
no,
There's
you're
a
good. Yeah.
theory that the entire point of Jeffrey Epstein
Mm,
was for Bill Clinton.
mm,
That was the entire point of everything that Jeffrey Epstein did, because you gotta realize, and I know you do, but the
mm.
listeners or viewers have gotta realize that Jeffrey Epstein is one of thousands of people doing this.
Yep.
Like, this is not new. Sexual blackmail within organized crime, which
Mhm.
was started by the mafia, uh, you know, where's my Ryan Dawson ding?
Oh,
But
yeah.
so the mafia starts sexual blackmail. Like they're the ones that invent it. They're the ones that refine it. So of course they're going to be the best at it.
Yeah.
And also, Trump learned from Roy Cohn, who was involved with all of them. So this is also why they can't get any dirt on Trump, because he knows how to not be blackmailed, because
Mm,
he knows how to blackmail people.
mm,
Um, but the thing is that if you just start paying attention to anything and just scratch below the surface even a little bit, the thing I did, um, so I've stopped paying attention to politics, but I've just been researching the hell out of everything. Started
mm.
with the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. At this point, I'm pretty sure the whole field of psychiatry is just bullshit. Like, I'm pretty sure the whole thing.
Uh,
Like,
yeah.
Sigmund Freud, before him, w- in our culture, we didn't have the thing where, like, you get called crazy.
Mm.
That comes from Sigmund Freud. He started that.
Wasn't he also a convicted, let's say a sexual crime offender to not offend the YouTube algorithm? Like
Fan of the
documented?
playground. Fan of the
Mhm.
playground. Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
I mean, and that runs really deep in these circles,
mhm.
in the spooky circles. Um, and here's just kind of where I am with politics. none of it matters because they're all playing for the same team and it's all the same goal.
Yeah.
And no matter what side you get in, it doesn't matter because
Yeah.
they're instituting a plan to make sure that we're all controlled
All right.
and we will take the chips. We will live in the 15-minute cities. We will do all of this. And I'll tell you right now, I got to send this to you.
Mhm.
Where it is going to be unveiled is here in the state of Utah. And they're going to do it at our next host of the Winter Olympics. Because
Mm.
by that point, our entire surveillance apparatus, like the entire state, is wired, even the rural areas. There's one company that owns everything,
Mhm.
which happens to be ran by the family of our current governor, almost like they planned this. So the fourth industrial revolution is being birthed currently right now. These systems are being put in place. That's what I'm working on behind the scenes is to try and stop these people and educate people about, digital privacy or just privacy in general because without privacy, there is no freedom.
Right.
And so everyone needs to keep their eye on what's going on in Utah because 49 other states have signed up to do the exact same thing. And
Mm.
you'll get a preview. And let me tell you right now, it is terrifying. Like it will take away everything everything that makes humans human. Like the ability to have dignity in dying, the ability to not be surveilled 24/7, the ability to make our own choices, the ability to have access to information, whether it's good or bad,
Mhm.
for our brains to develop in a way that we can tell the difference between good and bad information. Everything will be controlled. It's
Yeah. It
the
seems like
scariest thing possible.
it's kind of funny that you kind of went there because it's almost like not almost, we are kind of already there with the way our algorithms work.
Mhm.
And because they pick up on your behaviors, right? People
Oh,
are
yeah.
like freaking out about AI right now, but like I feel like you could almost argue that AI has been around for a lot longer than we even realize. And
Yep.
it's through these algorithms. They learn what you do, they learn what you look up, and they start recommending you
Yep.
things, and then you kind of get moved around. And I've made this argument for a while now, like all these Trump indictments that people are freaking out about. I don't believe any of them are actually genuine. Like people are like, oh, they're going to throw Trump in jail. They're going to put him in handcuffs.
No, they're
No,
definitely not.
this is all kayfabe. This is fundraising. This gets everybody worked up, and guess what happens?
Mhm.
Trump raises millions. The Democrats raise millions. I
The
refuse.
anti-hero.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely refuse to believe that this is anything genuine because we got to the point where Obama was no longer feasible. Like you couldn't continue the
Mhm.
woke stuff. So people say, "Oh, Trump wasn't supposed to get elected." Okay, but he did. So what do you do with
Mhm.
that? Because you can't make that argument that he wasn't supposed to get elected at this point because he did.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's funny because like all these people say, "Oh, 2020 was stolen." Okay, but then the same people that will tell you it's stolen are telling you that you have to go vote in a
Yep.
rigged system again. Like,
Exactly. The guy
you're
that had
all
it stolen is
yeah,
running for president again, like, they're gonna play fair?
right, and this kinda goes to, like, the whole Jordan Peterson thing of, like, do you actually believe it? If you say you believe in God, then you act like you do. If you believe the election was stolen, you wouldn't be
Clean up your room.
participating, but they still are.
Yeah.
So it's all this
Mhm.
kayfabe to keep people engaged and locked in. I can't look at it any other way because if it was another way, they would have Ron Pauled Trump, right? If this was
Mhm.
supposed to be an actually like legit thing. And people say, oh, they tried to kill him. Who? Okay, well, first of all, who's they? You could say, I've heard people say Israel. I'm like, are you fucking serious? The biggest Zionist that we've ever had as a fucking president was supposedly killed by Israel. You're and like I funny enough, where my band opened for Lita Ford is where that Trump rally was. Like I've stood on
Weird.
that ground where it was. Yeah, it's crazy. You're not going to convince me that this Thomas Crooks kid was some deep state assassin trying to kill Trump. There are different factions of the deep state that want certain outcomes. People
Mhm.
think it's just, a binary, but no, there's so many different interests and people and
Oh, yeah.
all these, interests at play that have different goals, different means, and different ways of kind of assessing the way that things can go. And I think this is to your point where like they got a plan no matter what. You're not going to tell me that like the two presidents, they're the two people that are running right now, aren't already accounted for in some respect.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's incredibly interesting because here's the thing about Trump, and here's why they wanted Biden. Let me start there first.
Mhm.
They wanted Biden because he was literally the perfect candidate that he could just be shuffled around like a little lost dog.
Yep.
Now, the reason that Trump screwed up their plan, which he did, but he didn't, because I mean, this is all like pro wrestling. Like
Right.
this, it's what it is. It's psychodrama. It's just for the sake of it existing.
Mhm.
And Trump is a team player.
Right.
However, he is not a perfect team player because he
Mhm.
has an independent streak where if he doesn't want to do something, he's not going to do it. So, whereas in Biden will jump, if they ask him to jump, he'll say how high 11 out of 10 times. Trump will jump 8. And just those 2 times that he doesn't jump is enough for them to lose their mind.
Right.
Because here's the thing about like disinformation, here's the thing about spooks, okay? Cuz the rabbit hole I went down was MK Ultra. I
Mm.
started there. I mean, I already knew a bunch, but I have like 4 topics that I'm focusing on, like fuck everything else. Like initially I didn't even remember what the PayPal mafia was until you started talking about it. I was like, "Oh
Mhm.
yeah." But the thing is that disinformation and misinformation, the way that it works is that they tell you 96% truth and
Mhm.
then they throw in 1 drop of bad. And then you got to figure it out. It's like if anyone's ever been just out to the woods in general and gone hiking or anything, done actual navigation, if you are just 1 degree off, a couple of hours later, you are lost. And
Yep.
that's how it works. And so this is why you should also never, cling to one source or one person, especially if they work with people like CIA, FBI, uh, MI5, MI6, all of these people, which there's no difference between the two, just where they're located.
Mhm.
Um, but the thing is we live in a fifth generation warfare uh, era now. So we won't have battles the way that we've always had them. The way that war is currently being conducted is information.
Right.
But like, so the reason why everything seems so crazy is because we are constantly, just constantly 24/7 being bombarded by technology, by psychological operations, by propaganda. And then there's propaganda for the propaganda and a psyop for the psyop for the psyop. And there's a counter psyop for that. And then, there's a spook hanging out with, Lauren Chen talking her into taking Russia money. And then somebody, sneaks that to the press or whatever just to make it a big story. It's like, oh my God, like, how could you even pay attention to any of this?
Right.
This is why I checked out because nothing is going to happen within the system
Mhm.
except for what's happening.
Right.
An ethical person cannot move or function in an unethical system unless you become unethical. This is why I disagree with the Libertarian Party. Not in its existence, it's because things are so bad that to do anything, if we even won in the first place, which we won't, but if we were, we would have to do unlibertarian things.
Mhm.
But these libertarians aren't even willing to work with somebody who has a different idea or realize that, hey, Chase isn't the right guy. Like maybe sometime in the future, but just for just for the optics of it, get him the fuck out of here. Like
Yeah.
you guys don't understand politics because this is a popularity game. So here's the thing. Anyone working within the system is a spook until proven otherwise. Like
It's a good assumption.
like it I hate to make it sound paranoid like that,
Mhm.
but with as much connection as there is to everybody and everything, like there's just no way for it to not be. It's like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever the hell that was.
Yeah.
Um it's we're all interconnected. That's why when COVID was first launched, that's why everything was so swift and uniform That's why when the system was put into place, it took over and it took a matter of a couple of days to shut the entire world down.
Mhm.
This is the system that we are supposed to be going into, and just walking in and them letting us tear this down. Bullshit. This is a like couple hundred-year plan finally being executed. They're not going to let, some naive, little kid basically walk in and just start like slashing taxes. It's
Right.
not going to happen. So that's the trick. Now, the thing is, the only way to get out of that is literally just the agorism side.
Mhm.
Don't participate in it. You got
Yeah,
to get
so
outside of it and parallel economy.
right, well, that's why, basically refusing to adopt the language and, like you said, kinda not participating is kind of the
Mhm.
way out of it, and like you said, Paul, you cannot care about politics, but politics does care about you, but,
Yep.
the most you can do is realize, "Okay, well, this is where I'm at, and I'm going to reject the premises put upon me," and, like, even this applies in more realms than just one too, so, like, when it comes to, let's say, the manosphere space, we talk a lot about frame, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like a corny kind of phrase, but at the same time, it's very, very important. So, like, my buddy Nuclear Cadillo always says this when people start saying, "Oh, like a good man wouldn't do this, a good man wouldn't do that." He always replies with, "I'm not a good man." Because it's not about the
I
definition
like
that
it.
they give you, it's about the
Yeah.
definition you're choosing to use.
Yeah.
Or like and I always try to get people to think about this as well, like, whenever I see people saying, "Oh, well, they did this to Trump, therefore I'm going to do the opposite," or "I endorse Trump," it's like, do
It's
you
what they want you to do.
yeah, I don't want to be led. I wanna forge my own destiny. Whether,
Yeah.
you shouldn't wanna be led from the front or from the back. And this is what a lot of people are doing right now is that they're being led from the back when it comes to like, "Oh, I'm going to support Trump because of this." If you want to, I have no qualms about that at all. And if you say it's lesser of two evils, fine, we agree, do what you wanna do. I'm telling you, I'm going from where I'm assessing the landscape, right? I have
Yeah.
my own principles, thoughts, ideas, and I'm going to assess the political landscape based on that. I'm going to lead myself because I don't want to be led. Fuck all
Yeah.
you guys. This is where I'm at. This is the way I'm assessing the situation, and I'm going to act accordingly. If you want to play, circle jerk politics, whatever, I'm okay with that. I have no problem with people doing what they want to do. But I'm more for informed consent, right?
Yeah.
And this is why people get pissed off with me when I say, hey, seed oils, artificial sweeteners, and stuff like that ain't bad for you. If you want to avoid them, fine. I don't give a shit. But I'm going to present you the information. You can decide what to
Yeah.
do with it from there. But once again, I don't want to be led. I have my own definitions of things, not like, out in the imagination land, but I'm basically saying, like, this is where I'm looking at things, and this is how I'm going to move forward doing that. You can
Yeah.
tell me all day I'm a retarded leftist, feminist or something like that, but guess what? I don't give a shit. I made
Yeah.
my own definitions. I made my peace with my decisions, and I'm going to go forward doing that. So, like a lot of guys in the red pill sphere may tell you, "Oh, well, the faux red pill sphere, dare I say, like Fresh and Fit or something like that, would tell you, "Oh, don't
Yeah.
get married." Well, I'm married because I want to be. That's
Fuck
it.
that.
I made
Yeah.
my own decision. I said, "This is what I want to do, and I'm going to fucking do it." Oh, you're letting Kamala win because you're not voting for Trump. No, I
What?
don't care. Like my one vote isn't going to change that. It
Yeah.
was kind of funny. We were getting lunch on Friday, and some guy said, "Oh, are you guys for Trump?" And I just didn't say anything because I'm like, oh, "Why do you care?" If other people are going to vote a certain way, there's nothing I can
It's
do to
like
change that.
strict tribalism shit.
Yeah, exactly. And like one powerful thing that you can realize in your life is you can't control other people. You can incentivize other people.
Mhm.
You can display behaviors that you think may
Persuade them.
incentivize them to act better. But at the end of the day, you cannot control other people and what they're going to do. All you can do is make the decisions for yourself and go forward with that. That's really about all you could do and decide how you react to those things. That's
And
that's
this
about
message
the
was
most
brought to you by the CIA. You cannot control people. Neither can
yeah.
we.
Mhm.
No, I agree with you though. It's really interesting because well, okay, here's where it really all clicked for me,
Mhm.
where I knew I was not going to stay in the space that I am. Is anything to do with transgender whatever. Like pick whatever part of that you want to talk about. It doesn't matter. every single argument positive for it, or that its existence, that it's care and not some fucked up science experiment. Like any positive view is contradictory in 100 plus ways. Like
Mm.
there is no consistency, there's no logic. It's built on lies and manipulated data, like all of these terrible things. And then you start realizing, shit, almost everything is. like, like
Mhm.
Bill Gates has been known to say this several times over. There's video of him saying it. One of his favorite books is How to Lie with Statistics.
Mm.
It's very easy. The
Right.
biggest thing is you have to be confident with it and kind of know what you're talking about. That's
Yeah,
it.
well, because people care about a narrative more than they care about the truth. If you
Mhm.
could sell a
They
sexy
care
narrative.
about feeling good.
Yep. Yep, and that's exactly what it is. And it's kind of like we've really been raised in a gynocentric society where it's not about the truth; it's always about the narrative. And
Mhm.
maybe this kind of removes me from a lot of political stuff because, like, I'm not a fan of narrative. I'm a fan of an objective truth, right? Yeah, good.
Oh, I was just bringing this up. I was
Mhm.
gonna send this to you. We're not gonna go through it. There's a lot to go through.
Yeah.
I will throw it in the chat though, and I'll send it to you so you can share it out and stuff. Though
Sure.
this is a part one of a multi series that I will end up doing. There's tons of UN control here in the state of Utah. The LDS Church is involved. The Shriners, Freemasons, like all of these organizations are involved,
Mhm.
and it's very clear. Um, it's it's so clear that one of our former governors, um, Rocky Anderson, he actually cried or he blew the whistle about the surveillance state coming into the state of Utah
Mhm.
during the same time as the 2002 Winter Olympics. All of a sudden, after 9/11, boom, we have the NSA data facility in Lehi, Utah. Um, and I remember it very clearly because there was a huge argument with all the farmers around there because at the time it was surrounded by farmland. No more. Um, the NSA was getting charged like $1.50 less than what local farmers were being charged per gallon of water. And so local farmers were going without water to water any of their crops or their animals.
Mhm.
And it was being directed directly to the NSA data facility, which stores all of our data, every bit of data. If there is something that happens on the internet or connected to the internet or happens through the internet or like just walks past the internet, it is in that facility. That is it. And so that is the head of the NSA, which is here. We are the home plate for one of the newest, most fastest growing religions. That's a whole different topic. I've covered some of it on my channel because that's really where I got started with all of this is trying to
Mhm.
expose that. Really interesting stuff if people are interested in it. Um, but it all starts with one guy. His name's David Hamblin, and he is currently sitting in jail, hoping that his case gets dismissed. Um, we'll see what happens. I hope it doesn't because there's more than enough evidence for him to go away for the rest of his life. Um, his brother, or wait, no, David Hamblin was connected to a man named David Levitt. David Levitt was a county attorney. Uh, his family is massive here. The one thing Utah has, for anyone that doesn't know,
Mhm.
we have royal families basically. So when the Mormons came here, there were bloodlines that established themselves and have been here ever since, and they are treated like royalty basically. And there's not 13 of them. That would be a coincidence, but they are here, and their names are on all sorts of buildings. The Eccles,
Mhm.
you know, uh, Hinckley. There's just all these names. So David Levitt, county attorney, multiple times over. He actually has um, a charity business that I didn't know about this, but he has a charity business or a charity where he goes over to Ukraine, Yugoslavia, all of these middle or Eastern Europe countries to go help them establish their legal systems. Well, it just so happens to be that the top three countries, the only three countries that he is allowed to work in legally through the filing, but the only three countries he wanted to go to are also one, two, and three on the child trafficking, uh, you know, first, second, and third place.
Yeah.
So that's where he's operating. Well, his brother, David Levitt's brother, was the governor of Utah. He was the one that spawned all of this, basically. You just pull up his name and it will just go crazy. But a couple of quick things and we'll move on from this. It's really interesting to think about. So Utah, back in, let's see, 1869, East and West were connected by rail. 1969, the internet was turned on for the first time, and there were 4 nodes. There were 4 places in the world that were connected through the internet. University of Utah was one of them. So there are major things that have always happened in this state. At a certain point, you couldn't go east or west without coming through the town I live near, Ogden, Utah. It was called the Gateway to the West. Everyone came through here. I don't know if it's true, but supposedly there's rumors of Al Capone coming out here and running liquor, and him saying that he would never do it again because it was such a dangerous town. So it goes deep, is my point. So definitely make sure and go check this out. There is just tons of information, and so that's why it takes me a minute to get it out. However, everybody's connected. All the usual suspects. Hell, we even I don't know if you know who the Process Church of the Final Judgment is. They were radical Scientologists. So it's like the FLDS versus the LDS. It's like same thing, but Scientology. The Process Church turned into Best Friends Animal Society, which is headquartered here in Utah. Imagine that. There's like just all these terrible things happening all the time and starting to find out why. So, yeah, it's an incredibly interesting thing. We've already got a digital ID pilot program. We've got the systems being put in place. In fact, I actually went and taught the state treasurer, the Utah state treasurer, all about crypto from the activist side, not the technical side. I'm not a programmer, but I am a radical privacy advocate. And the people that were meeting with him understood this. So I went and spoke from that side about the potential abuses. And it blew my mind. The entire state legislature is voting on these things and they don't even know what it is. And also, once this gets put into place, there's no going back. There's not like, oh, I don't like this system. Let's just go back to our, paper or plastic IDs. It's not going to work that way. So people don't even know what's coming, but all of the pieces are there. It's being put into place, and libertarianism is being used to usher it in, because the 2 people here in the state that are really pushing it at the top was even with Governor Cox when he signed the digital ID pilot program into law, even though Utah already said they didn't want it. Were 2 people, a husband and wife team, who started the very first government blockchain that had marriage certificates when the entire rest of the world was shut down. So Utah County Courthouse was the only courthouse, at least in the United States, that were marrying people when lockdowns were happening. So they did this through the use of the blockchain technology. Now, I actually went and got on a podcast here. It's called We Are the People. And the whole point was I was supposed to go in and go counter this guy's arguments. Well, I did. In fact, I did such a good job that the owner and host of the podcast, him and his wife, all of their bank accounts got hacked. They had like a whole bunch of things stolen. Their YouTube account wiped, gone,
Mhm.
just gone. And I mean, they had like 2 million viewers. And it's just really interesting the way that things happen here. So I recommend anyone, if you want to know what's going on, keep an eye out on the state of Utah. There's so much going on here, and nobody even knows. Everyone's worried about Trump and all this shit, and it's like,
Mhm.
hey, like, the mark of the beast is here, guys.
Mhm.
Look over here.
Yeah, I think most people think it's coming from like New York or California, but I think that's by design. That has to be by design because it sounds like there's like I'm picturing like a finger on a quarter, and the quarter is holding everything down that's coming down the pipe. And
Yep.
this metaphorical hand is waiting to be lifted, and nobody knows about it because once again, we talk about California, we talk about the lawsuits, the presidential election, but like a lot of things are coalescing where you're at, and nobody talks about it. But I think I cannot think that that's by accident.
Mhm.
And that's where I'm always at with a lot of this stuff. It's like, well, why? Why are you hearing
Mhm.
about that? And why
It's the
now?
long con. And
Mhm,
this is what's frustrating is people want to pretend like this doesn't exist, right?
mhm.
I am so sick of the term conspiracy theory. It makes me want to puke. Okay.
Yeah,
Almost everything is a conspiracy. It's literally just two or more people working in secret. Like that happens all the time. It doesn't have to inherently be bad. However, it is more likely to be a definition, textbook definition conspiracy if it's nefarious. However, there are good conspiracies, believe it or not. Now, why would anyone think that this doesn't happen just because it's not like Hollywood, which is also another conspiracy?
mhm,
Go fuck yourself. Like there's a document after Kennedy was killed. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it was literally the CIA talking about how to weaponize the term conspiracy theory.
mhm.
And that was in the 60s. Like
Yeah,
we are so far past that. Like I read stuff now about like the mind control stuff and like the torture they did on people. It's heartbreaking. It truly is. And it's even worse now because what the hell do they have? You know?
exactly. Yeah, and I think a lot of people kind of misunderstand how far along we are, and this is kind of goes back
Mhm.
to the point of where I think people are so far behind in their analysis. It's like, man, technology changes fast, and we are still so far behind in how we understand a lot of this stuff. And to assume, like, people are now starting to say, like, oh, mainstream or alternative media is now bigger than mainstream media. It's like this was kind of
Yeah.
like the deal almost 8 years ago at this
Yep.
point. Now we're finally getting to the point where it's like, oh, these mainstream alternative media, as I call it, um, this is kind of saturated with a lot of like spooks, CIA assets, and stuff
Yep.
that's purposely put there to mislead you or to make you think a different way than you otherwise would. Like, if you don't think alt media is compromised, I don't know what to tell you. Like, people that go on some of these podcasts, I notice it. And I think Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, where it's just like this constant drip of just
Mhm.
CIA, assets and information that's poured into your brain to distract you from what's really going on. Stuff
Yeah.
like what you're talking about here, or when you talk about foreign policy at large, where it's largely lies by omission, and I
Mhm.
think that's by design. Is that they want you to be completely misled. But once again, to go to another point that you brought up, where they're telling you the truth in a lot of the situations, but they're not telling you the whole truth. And
Mhm.
that not telling you the whole truth is plausible deniability to tell you, we told you the truth.
Yep.
They just didn't tell you everything.
Well, and that's the problem with the 9/11 truth community,
Mhm.
especially at this point. Like there was some straight legitimate people doing some very good work in the beginning.
Yeah.
And up until recently, I mean, I was just talking or I had sent a message to Ryan Dawson about this because he's updating his documentary Empire of Lies, I think is what it's called.
Mhm.
Just update it because he's better at making documentaries now. And he even told me, like, as soon as this documentary's done, I'm washing my hands of the
Mhm.
9/11 movement. There is way too much kookery going on, like. And I said, I thought this was pretty funny, but I said that it's interesting to watch all of these no plane people, or a plane didn't hit the Pentagon people, literally just gargle this bad information, which is
Mhm.
verifiably false. You can go on and find pictures of the wreckage. It's that simple.
Right.
Google doesn't even hide it. So, and yet there's still people out there pushing, like, ooh, what happened to Building 7? Yeah, it's weird, but it's not as weird as you think it is.
Right.
Because what they want is they want you to go out there and say, well, the official story is obviously bullshit. That's clear to anyone with a brain. But what is it? And then you go up the mountain
Mm.
and get lost. That's the whole point. So,
R Yeah, the whole goal is misinformation, and that's why every single time I see Alex Jones talking about foreign policy or something like that, I'm like,
mhm,
"You are purposefully put there to mislead people."
yep.
And who was it? It was, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, and Jack Posobiec together one event. I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh,
the
that's like
worst.
the CIA encapsulated,
Yeah. Yeah.
the purposely put there to fucking mislead
Mhm.
people, steer people the wrong way." And nobody calls them out for it.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating because once again, a lot of the stuff is misinformation, meant to mislead you or give you a narrative that takes you off the trail. And you always have to wonder when you see people change their mind and be very, very boisterous in their new position. You always have to wonder why that is. So,
Yeah.
um, and like I like a lot of stuff that Tucker says, but
Same.
I I just it really drives me nuts why people never ask about him because they'll be the first ones to tell you, "Oh, he's the biggest the biggest show on TV news."
I wonder why that is, though. Uh,
Why is that? And then
hmm,
you know, you guys have all this skepticism about every other journalist, but he doesn't
yep.
get the same skepticism. I'm not saying he's wrong, but I'm just saying you're not as skeptical. And once again, I
Yep.
don't think that's a mistake.
Well, and here's the thing. I'll key everyone in on a little secret. There is no such thing as ex CIA, ex FBI. There's retired. There's not active. But once CIA, once you're intelligence, you are always intelligence.
Mhm.
And even if you're not like currently active, going to different parts of the world, doing some James Bond shit, which actually most of the time is not as cool as you think it is. It's just pretty boring. But even if you're not doing that actively on the payroll, you'll still get contacted every now and then to have questions asked or to see if you can do a favor. Because here's the thing, the CIA runs exactly like the mob, because the CIA learned how to run their organization from the mob. Because in the very beginning, when it switched from OSS after World War II, they were really bad at their jobs. But they needed black funding. They couldn't go to Congress to get funding for any of this stuff.
Mhm.
So what did they have to do? They had to become criminals. Imagine that. Who did they go to? They went to the mob. And this is why J. Edgar Hoover ended up getting blackmailed by the guy who basically taught Trump everything he knew, Roy Cohn.
Mhm.
So,
So I am stoked to tell you guys about the show's new sponsor. I am now working with MTS Nutrition, which is a brand that I've believed in for a very, very long time, and they run awesome cells and they have awesome products. So I want to tell you about their amazing protein powder, which you're going to ask me how many pounds I have of the protein powder, and the answer is all of them. So here I got Red Velvet Cake, 25 grams of protein, and they have the amino acids and everything on there, 59 servings. Peanut butter fluff, Fluffernutter, 26 grams of protein, and then also the chocolate chip cookie, which literally has real pieces of chocolate chip cookie in there. So 27 grams of protein, 180 calories. As I've talked about on the show, getting your protein in is very, very important. So make sure you hit that link below and purchase your protein powder through MTS Nutrition. Boom!
Kills me every single time. Yeah, and like I said, people just need to approach everything skeptically.
Mhm.
Just because somebody agrees with you doesn't mean that you should stop being skeptical. You should be a little bit more skeptical of the stuff that confirms your bias than things that go against it because sometimes you are full of shit. I've been full of shit
Yeah,
plenty of fucking times and I've had to be proven
same.
wrong. And I'd much rather be able to grow and be wrong rather than just sit there and smell my own farts all day. Like that shit's for the bees, man. Fuck that.
Have you ever heard of Ghost in the Machine?
That phrase sounds familiar, but, not ringing any bells as to
So,
exactly what.
Ghost in the Machine was a movie from the late '90s, I believe, or
Mhm,
mid '90s, and it's a crazy sci-fi movie. Like, you go
mhm,
back and watch it now, and, like, of course, it's like a B movie, but, like, what they're talking about then seemed like science fiction. Now, it is not. However, um, I was gonna bring this up. This
mhm.
wasn't, let's see, I thought I had a better. Yes, I do. Boom, there we go. So this is a YouTube video called Ghost in the Machine. This actually comes from, let's see if I can back out real quick. If everyone can see that real quick, it is the fourth PSYOP group from the US military. So
Ooh,
the US military released this video. Um, let's see, they released it 2 years ago at this point. They have a whole series of these videos. So let's give this a watch real quick because it is incredibly interesting and it explains a lot. Nope.
As the world watches and listens in horror, the peaceful pro-democracy demonstration in China comes to a violent and bloody end. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Wolves hiding nearby, whispering, do or die around me. You say your last good night while I get by.
And all the world's a stage. What the fuck?
There is another very important phase of warfare. It has as its target not the body, but the mind of the enemy.
The target of psychological warfare is against the enemy's mind.
It is words and ideas.
Ammunition used by Psywar.
Its mission is to influence the thoughts of the enemy soldier, and at the same time,
Is expected and encouraged to study foreign languages and the social sciences such as history, economics, and sociology. He must have a broad and sympathetic understanding of all phases of human experience.
Gripping at my skin, the walls of night closing.
but the use of this force as an integral part of combat has now taken on new form.
Fucking terrifying, man.
Say my last goodbye.
These are the Psy War soldiers.
Yeah, dude.
Man,
What the fuck was that? Like,
people have
dude.
no idea how deep the conditioning goes, dude. By the time you're a kid,
Yeah.
narratives that you're told your entire life, and some of the World War II questioning
Mhm.
poses, it kind of makes you realize how deep this stuff kind of goes. Tell, either person, a Republican or a Democrat, one thing that kind of might shatter their world narrative, and you'll see how people react. And that's because, once again, they've been taught these things from a young age.
Mhm.
When you question certain myths, and not like myth as in like this is bullshit myth, as in like the general idea that underlies their entire reality. When you question people's worldview or their essentially their epistemology, you kind of see where the cracks start,
Yeah.
where it starts to manifest, it starts to spread. People really don't like that shit, man. And once again, that is not a mistake.
No, and it's crazy too because I mean, all of this information is public, right? Like
Mhm.
I've gone down deep. Like I'm in some deep rabbit holes right now with the research I'm doing. But a lot of this like technique, like how to do these things,
Yeah.
it's been out since the 50s. Like there's some things that don't change ever. There's that famous saying, or it's like an idiom, and I think it just explains everything so well that it's uh, for as many things that change, just as much stays the same.
Mhm.
And there are constants, and I mean that is objective truth, right? Like it's objectively true. The CIA does terrible things. Like that's just objectively true, whether you agree with it or not. They overthrow governments. Like that's their whole job. Um, and suppose like they are the good guys for a second, okay? Just think about this. If we have free speech online, then so does China, so does Russia, so does Zimbabwe, so does everyone. So what that means is their job, the CIA's job, if they're protecting America, is to counter whatever information comes in. So when everyone's pushing pro Israel, and all of a sudden we've got this huge influx of not pro Israel or
Mhm.
whatever side, because I mean, there's not one argument other than the fact that killing kids is wrong, period. Um, Doing anything other than raising them properly to a child is wrong. But that's what their job would be. So just, you know, factually speaking. So if, say, Russia comes in and like the whole Putin endorsing Kamala, like
Yeah.
that's obviously a move because then they've got to come in with counter it. And then they've got a huge push for pro-Trump stuff. Like because their job is intelligence and we're supposed to keep secrets from other people to gain the edge. So with social media, like this is where the battleground is happening.
Right.
And this is why you can hop on Twitter and it's like you think the world is on fire outside. Like
Yeah.
and some people, you know this as well as I do, some people take this shit way too seriously.
Oh yeah.
Like, dude, it's like a game to me. That and the one thing that I've enjoyed about all of my involvement in politics and you know all of this stuff is I have met the best people ever. Like
Yeah.
for instance, you were like one of the coolest people. Like I love seeing you pop up on my feed all the time, getting to have conversations with you like this. And I never would have met you if we weren't involved somehow in politics in this movement, right? That's the one and only good thing out of it. Because what we can do collectively is we can turn this into the decentralized organization that we need to build a parallel economy outside of this and be able to take care of it ourselves because I, unlike some people, I believe that we are responsible enough people to be able to run things ourselves.
Right.
Like I have full faith in a majority of people, even if they're stupid people.
Yeah.
Like they can still get up, put their boots on, and go to work. So
People generally stick the landing, and
mhm,
maybe not stick the landing, but generally they kind of stumble and fumble their way through lives or through their lives. And kind of something that I've thought about quite a bit recently is like you kind of realize yourself as an adult once you finally forgive your parents and you realize they were people much like you, just kind of wandering through and figuring it out as they go. Because
yeah,
really, that's kind of what most of us are doing. I mean, life is complex, difficult. We have to make a lot of decisions. We don't always know how things are going to go, but you kind of truck on forward anyways. And like
yep,
you said, like a lot of the social media stuff, I'm grateful for it because I've made so many wonderful connections, met so many incredible people that really changed my life for the better,
yep,
and learned so much that changed the way that I look at the world and the way that I even interact in the world. So a lot of stuff is a tool for good if you let it be,
hmm,
and I don't think a lot of people really want to let it be. Like it's a lot more fun sometimes to just piss on everything and set the world on fire, but at the same time, it is really social media and a lot of the stuff is kind of like fire where you can cook your food or you could
hmm,
burn your house down and your neighbor's house down. It's up to you
yeah,
how you use it.
yeah. You can build yourself a sword to
Mhm.
protect you and your family, or a cow tips over a gas lantern and burns down Chicago, which
Yeah,
that's a fake story that didn't happen, at least the way that we're told. But
yeah.
it's just really interesting. All of these things, like I said, I'm to the point. I'm like 90% sure that all psychiatry is bullshit. Like it just because the people involved in the formation of it are all spooks.
Right.
Like they have, and here's also the other thing, and this is just like the duality of man, right? Is that even these people who like, here's my saying, and I think I'm going to do a T-shirt for this, although everyone here will understand it, but when people see a T-shirt, uh, even Hitler liked dogs, right? Like even the worst people possible have at least one characteristic about them that you could probably like, you
Mhm.
know?
One redeeming quality.
Yeah. And granted that guy actually had a lot more than what we're told, but
Mhm.
point is that the worst of the worst, like Ted Bundy was, like super nice and did help people from time to time. So it's like there's just this really interesting side. Dr. Jolin West or Jolly West, um, he stuck up for civil rights and did all of these wonderful things. But then he was also like the main doctor for MK Ultra.
Mhm.
Supposedly was the one that got Charles Manson hooked on LSD and taught him how to manipulate others. Which think about this: the CIA has been at that point in the early '60s had been spending millions of dollars trying to figure out how to brainwash people effectively, and they fail at it officially on the record. But then out of nowhere comes just this like fuck up of a person, for lack of a better way to describe him. You know, one of these guys that just falls through the cracks, never had a chance. And he is a criminal mastermind and is able to figure out how to brainwash people. And the CIA, with all their manpower and money, is not. That's bullshit. That is not how it happened. Like, and when you put it that way, you're like, oh, yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense that he wouldn't learn that. He would have
Mhm.
had to have some help.
Right.
And it's just really interesting, which is why I focus on the subjects that I do now. Not only is it really interesting to me, there's a lot of uncovered things that I feel I can bring to light in a particular way that will interest people. Um, but once you start seeing the larger picture, you just realize, like, whoa, I know nothing. Like you feel like Ralph, like, I'm in danger, you know, like stick to the truth. As
Mhm.
long as you stick to the truth, what you know of the truth. I touch fire, that hurts, that's bad, but we need fire. Stick to the truth and you're fine. It will never steer you wrong. But if you find yourself getting mad at something, you're being manipulated,
Mhm.
period.
Yeah, and this is what, me and my buddy Jack kinda talk about a little bit. He said on my show, "Tell the truth as best you know it, as detached as possible. And
I
kind
like
of like I was saying earlier about being, led is that same deal. Generally, anytime you hear somebody talk about, you're not a real libertarian, you're not a real man, you're not a real
yeah.
Republican, whatever it is, that's because you're outside of their frame. You're doing
Mhm.
something that doesn't jive with their understanding of the world. So therefore, they're going to tell you something that challenges your identity or the way that you kind of see the world to steer you towards their understanding of the world.
Yes.
That may be for your benefit or it may not be, but you should always kind of think, is this helping me? Is this hurting me? And why am I being told this? Think
Yeah.
about the psychological warfare that's going on. And typically we don't, right? You're
Right.
scrolling on Twitter, you see a story, retweet it, share a thought, and then you just kind of go on about your day. But you don't think about, why is this being put in front of me? And is this manipulation that I'm receiving good or bad? Or, let alone why am I receiving it? Most people just kind of go right along with the manipulation. And
Mhm.
you see this all the time. Once again, do you not care about democracy? They're
God.
doing that because they
Yeah.
want you to support what they're,
Mhm.
support more money to Ukraine, support more
You're
money
a
to Taiwan or
conspiracy
whatever.
theorist. That would never happen. If
Exactly.
that happened, it would be on the news. It would be everywhere.
Right. It's because
Like,
you're not falling under their understanding of the world. So therefore they're going to say something that
mhm,
gets you back towards their frame.
exactly.
Mm,
And what's interesting, so let me know what you think of this idea. I've been trying to push this idea for a while
mm,
now. Um, my opinion, the entire purpose of the Libertarian Party should be to counter state propaganda. That's
mm.
it. Like, we comply with whatever like legal requirements as far as running candidates and spending money or whatever, but we do the very bare minimum, right? And of course, we want to try and fight to keep it low and everything, but that's not the focus. The focus is literally to disprove and fight against state propaganda, the media propaganda, because what's going to end up naturally happening is that everyone will end up coming to our side naturally because they're going to say, "Oh, both sides are full of shit."
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah, I
like,
mean, it kind of goes to the purpose of what Dave Smith had said his run for president would be, is basically a messaging platform,
yeah,
and I think that's powerful, and people underestimate how powerful that is. So, like I said earlier, narrative to most people is more important than the truth, but I think if you can market it in a certain way or give people the truth in a certain
mhm,
way, then hey, maybe they will come over our side. But at the same time, you always got to accept that like you can only control what you're
yeah,
directly responsible for and generally the way that you can react to stuff. So, there are going to be some times where you kind of have to accept the truth for what it is and accept that some people are just going to do things that you don't like.
mhm,
Um, and that's a bitter pill for some people to swallow. Like when you hear people saying, we're going to hold this person accountable. Okay, well, generally, all you could do is pull time, attention, affection, or your money.
mhm.
And sometimes those are powerful levers, but that's generally the most you can do for a lot of situations.
Well, and don't you find it funny too? It's kind of coming full circle.
Mm,
Is that so? If I've had this happen to me a lot, but I will, for instance, defend a person's right to be racist,
mhm.
and then therefore the left says, "Oh, well, therefore you must be racist," and it's like, whoa, 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 that's no, I didn't say that. Like, and that's it's like built into most people at this point because you got to think like most people, uh, the average person is pretty stupid these days.
Yeah.
Half the people are stupider than that. So also there's that thing where, a majority of people are walking around without an internal monologue.
Right.
That explains so much. Like, I'm surprised you guys walk upright and breathe, you know? Like,
Yeah. No, that
yeah,
happens when I
yeah.
talk to some people. Um, that's definitely a situation where you're like, wow, you have like autonomy. You drive.
Yeah. We really need to get this voting thing under control because way too many people are voting. Also, voting's not a right. Just in case anyone's curious, that's not a
Yeah.
thing. It's a privilege, and yeah, it's of the value of a vote is only as good as the person in charge of the system.
Hmm.
So our votes are shit. That doesn't mean that voting is shit. It just means that our system is shit because the people in charge of it are corrupt. And they've made it corrupt, and they've made it benefit the corrupt and hurt the truthful. So once again, it's crazy. And then we'll start wrapping up here, but there is one thing I wanted to show you
Yeah.
because this kind of encapsulates just like what we're talking about perfectly. So I had another one of these conversations where I commented on one of my local newspapers, KSL or Fox 13 or something. And it was something, it was like a letter to the editor type thing. Right. And what was interesting, let's see, there it is. What was interesting was the opinion that this person gave was that people need to be brave and confront homophobes because we don't want to live in that kind of a world anymore. And my comment to it was that, well, if people can have the right to choose who they love, then we should also have the right to choose who we hate.
Hmm.
Like, that's not a defense of assault or battery or stalking or harassment or any of these things. But I can love certain people and I shouldn't be forced to do that. But then I should also be able to hate whoever the hell I want for whatever the hell I want. As long as I'm not hurting them or doing something actually criminal, there's nothing wrong with having an opinion. And in
Right.
fact,
Well,
they're phobic against homophobes. So it's like,
yeah, it goes out of thought crime. Basically, you're off of
yes.
our plantation, right? We
Mhm.
want you to feel like, or we don't want you to feel, we want you to think this certain way. When,
Yeah.
this kind of is one of the core tenets of libertarianism is the freedom of
Mhm.
association, where, you should be free to basically associate and dissociate with who you want.
Yes.
And like, even at that, if somebody doesn't like somebody, isn't that, like fair and fine? Like, wouldn't you want to know if
You
somebody
would think.
dislikes you so you're not spending time with people that genuinely
Mhm.
want bad things for you? I don't want to spend time with people who hate me, so I don't. It's really that
Yeah.
simple.
Also, wouldn't you want to know where the racist people are? Because if you tell them they can't say racist things, they're going to say it behind closed doors, and then you have
Right.
no clue where they are. But let me just ask you real quick, what do you understand to be the definition of a phobia?
I My understanding is something that you're scared of. So when people say Islamophobic, homophobic, or insert phobic here, I
Yeah.
think it phobic generally means fear. I don't
Yeah.
think people who hate Muslims are Islamophobes. I think they just don't like Muslims, which
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I think that's wrong personally, but people are free to do it, and I'm not going to try to convince them
Yeah.
otherwise. Or people who don't like gay people. Hey, that's I don't like I'm not a gay person, but if people are gay, then I mean, it just is what it is. I
Yeah.
can't change that. There are some people on the more hard right now that are saying we should ban homosexuality, but I'm like, okay, well, good luck
That's
with that.
weird.
Let me know how that, yeah, let me know how that's going to work out. Once again, I don't think that shit should be around kids, and I don't think that's great, but I can't stop that. I can't control anybody but me.
So you're
So,
a pride phobe, if anything,
yeah,
because I kind of feel the
essentially.
same way.
Mhm.
First of all, not all gay people identify with the pride movement,
Exactly right.
and that is the problem here. I hate the pride movement.
Hmm.
I think it is a disgusting movement, not
Right.
just because we're celebrating a literal sex act,
Mhm.
um, like just everything. Once again, like the whole transgender thing, it's a contradiction the whole way through. And so that is basically everyone's understanding of what a phobia is that it's like an irrational fear. Sometimes is can be rational, but there's a difference between being bigoted and prejudice, right?
Right.
Like words have meaning. So this is the definition, which I think we'd all agree with number one. An
Yeah.
intense, persistent, irrational fear of a specific object, activity, situation, blah, 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 blah. Yes, irrational fear. Now, the red squared off one, an aversion toward, dislike of, or disrespect for a thing, idea, person, or group. Can you explain to me anything that is not covered under the category of thing, idea, person, or group?
No, not really.
Not a fucking thing. So we have, mind you, this was just changed like recently, maybe within the last year or so. It comes from dictionary.com. So Oxford is not going to be too far behind if they haven't already. But so just disliking things. So I'm a running out of coffee phobe.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm a pizza phobe.
yeah, I'm a black olive and sardine phobe. Like, and then it cheapens the whole point of calling somebody a racist or a homophobe. Like, if everything is that thing, then nothing is that thing.
Right. It loses its weight.
Yeah, like, I try to explain this to people, and sometimes even the leftists will get this, but we are all taught this as children, and we're taught it through story, and the story is the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, words don't mean anything if everyone doesn't believe a thing you say. So I just find it incredibly interesting. I was called a homophobe, didn't even express any sort of actual opinion, just said, you know, people with bad opinions have a right to have a bad opinion. And like, you would have thought I kicked a dog. Like,
yeah, people
No.
lost their goddamn
Yeah.
minds.
yeah, for 2 days I had notifications rolling in, and it's insane. So that's where we are in this country. That's where we are socially, and this is why I am a major proponent of the exit and build strategy. Like, the idea that I could just come to you, or I could send you a text message and say, hey, that protein stuff you've been making, I'm hitting the gym, I need to get some stuff, let me just send you over some Monero real quick, and you get your Monero, you send it out in the next batch of mail, or whatever service. It's like, we can do that. We don't need a financial system behind us.
Right.
What we have now. Everything the government does is shit. So, except for hurting people, imprisoning them, stealing their money, that stuff they're really good at, even though they've botched a few times. So
Yeah, for real. Yeah, and basically, as long as you have faith and trust in a system between individuals, the system generally works.
yeah, imagine believing that people can be left alone to behave properly and not constantly oversought, micromanaged. Most people behave well. And then when you have a more connected community, you can spot the bad people a lot quicker because everyone knows each other. Everyone communicates. You're not scared of your neighbors. you know?
Right. Yeah, man.
And this is where I've been. Like, just the past couple of days, I've been getting back onto Twitter just in time for all the cat and dog stuff. So, and it's like, well, why did the story have to break there? Like, is that Twitter the only place that people can get a hold of these people? And I'm not saying it's happening or not happening. I don't have an opinion, but other than the fact, if it happened to me, I would kill somebody harming my pet like that. So
Yeah.
it's just really interesting when you start paying attention to this stuff, and I'm glad you see it too. I wouldn't expect anything less. So I think we'll wrap up here. Damn, and I wanted to talk to you about lifting weights, so we'll have to do another episode here soon.
Yeah, dude, I'm available. You know where I'm at.
Oh yeah. Well, that's another thing that I've been trying to focus on is nutrition, cleaning up my house, getting all of like the nasty chemicals and stuff out of my house. It is a hell of a job. Let me tell you, almost everything has some sort of terrible chemical in it. which is why I actually recommend, I don't normally do this, but there is an app. I will show to everyone real quick. Let's see, where is it? It is called Yucca, which I thought was clever. And there is a free version, but the paid version is literally pay whatever you want. So minimum of $10 donation, and you get it for a whole year. But what it is you scan barcodes, like a lot of these food apps these days, but it tells you what ingredients are harmful. It tells you why they're harmful and actually what they do, because most services don't. They just tell you this is bad. But Yucca will tell you what it is, why it's bad, what it can do to you, and it links to scientific sources. So, and I mean, after COVID, take that for what it is. However, let's see. Ooh. Well, it's called Yucca.
Yeah, you can
Anyways.
kind of see it.
So I highly, highly recommend it for everyone. There's already a couple of products that I won't be able to use anymore because it got such a low rating. So it's like, it just sucks. But everyone's focus on Trump, Kamala, all of this shit. The war is happening in our homes, with our families. They're poisoning us. Like, fuck that. I need clean water. I need clean food. I need good conversations with good people. So on that note, any last words?
Oh man, yeah, the war is absolutely going on inside your mind, and you got to reject their territory, their advances at all costs, man. Jacob, I appreciate you having me on, man. For people who are curious for my perspective, the stuff that I do in Liberty and Health, I usually do that Wednesdays. I do 5 till midnight on Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Cognitive Vigilance, 8:30 on Thursdays, and then usually every other Sunday I do my Sunday Coffee and Post Zero, where I'll occasionally host. Jack Napier may host, Nuclear Cadillo may host, David Andrews may host.
Hell yeah.
I'm involved in so many different projects, so many irons in the fire, and of course, my amazing band with the most amazing people I know personally, Common Crown, where next year I think is going to be a big year for Common Crown. So I got a lot of irons in the fire, but you can find that all Komatovic. If you Google me or go to my link tree, you'll find all that stuff there.
Hell yeah. And I will make sure that's in the episode description. Make sure and go check Kyle out. I didn't realize that your YouTube channel was still below 1,000 subscribers.
I'm working hard at it, man.
So
but
everyone go over and subscribe right now. It is worth it. Most of the time I just lurk because I'm usually busy working myself. But one of my favorite channels. You have great conversations over there.
Thanks,
so
man.
Yeah. Other than that, as far as myself goes, this is interesting. I'm trying to find this real quick so we can get out of here, but I did have to bring this up. Let's see. Of course, I wasn't ready.
That's all right.
So I got an invitation to possibly attend the Red Pill Expo as media this year. The Red Pill Expo, for anyone who doesn't know, is G. Edward Griffin's thing. So he started the Red Pill University, and it's literally just anything that's not official. And of course, truthful, but they hold an expo. Now we can actually, let's see, where the hell is it? Well, you can go to risetoliberty.com/redpill. And if you use promo code RISE15, get 15% off your, get 15% off your ticket prices. And then of course I get a little kickback from that, but that's going towards getting me out there because it's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And of course I don't have any of the information in front of me, but nonetheless, Red Pill Expo, you'll see it linked everywhere here in a little bit from me. And there's some other cool stuff going on, but that's got to wait. Other than that, everyone else, until next time, stay free, my friends.